Hello, welcome to Lessons Learned. I'm Sherry, and today's Wednesday video is going to be a very simple stash buster. If you have a layer cake, which is 42 10-inch squares, and some extra fabric for some borders, and then maybe a little background fabric, just a plain white, cream, black, just a basic color, gray, or some color that will coordinate with your colors in your charm pack. This one is called Starlight Safari, and it has animals in it. I think it would make a perfect toddler quilt, or up to age 7, I would say, quilt. So it could be a baby quilt. You could gear it towards blue or pink for whatever gender. And then yeah, we're going to make a really simple quilt. No half square triangles, no crazy angled rectangles, no flying geese, no curved pieces, no pattern. How about that? I will give you a couple of measurements. That's it. After that, you can make as many blocks as you want and make it as big as you want according to how much fabric you have. You should be able to get out of this a pretty good size quilt, not a bed size, but maybe a 60 by 60 or less, we'll say, depending on how you arrange your blocks. You might make them in a rectangle shape, or you might make yours square. So let's just go ahead and pull this apart and see what I have in here. Check out all the beautiful bright colors. Isn't that great for a youth quilt? I have my accompanying fabric here that is part of the line. I also pulled out some white that will be used in all of the blocks. This particular white has a tiny dot in it. I don't know if you can tell. This is the right side. It has a tiny white dot on top of it. So I'm going to use that because there's some dots in here and some of these little splatterings of dots here and there, and I think that will look nice with it. So now let me get you over to the cutting aspect of this. It's very easy. If you don't have a layer cake, you can use 2 or 3 charm packs that are of the same line, or you could use a jolly bar. So any of those things will work for this too. Our block components will be 4.5 inches. So 4 of those in a block. And it's going to end up being an Irish chain in the end. And it's going to be really cute. So let me go ahead and start some cutting. And all of the measurements that I want you to cut, I'll stick in the description box. So you can write those down, or you can write them down as I tell you here on the video. Okay, let's get to the fun part. Okay, I cut 9 strips, 2.5 inches wide by width of fabric of my white. This may be enough to do my entire quilt. I'm shooting for 9 blocks, 9 big, large blocks. So I cut one of these already down into 2.5 inch squares, because we're going to be constructing 4.5 inch blocks. Now you're going to need 2 colors, 2 different colors of your pattern here, of your layer cake. These are so cute. So I'm just going to cut it one at a time though, so that you can see what I'm doing. I have a 12-inch ruler. Of course, this is a 10 by 10 square, and I'm going to cut I need a 4.5 inch square. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure over 4.5, and I'm skipping over my pinked edges. I'm just going to lay my ruler marking right at the bottom of the pinked edge, the valley, if you will, and go ahead and cut there. And then now that I have a straight edge, I'm going to flip it over and cut an exact 4.5 inch, and that should get rid of my little pinked edges there, so I don't have to worry about those. Now I need a 4.5-inch square, so I'm going to do that again on the opposite direction. So I'm just going to do this right here. And then flip it over and trim off the pinked edges. Okay, so that's one square that we need. And then we also need 2 pieces that are 2.5. So let's go 2.5 on that little piece that's left over. And get our 2 pieces out of this using our flat edge there. 2.5 and 2.5. Okay, so that's the next part of our block that we need. Now we need to take an opposite color or something not the same exactly. I mean, some of these prints are probably going to cross over in the quilt a little bit, but they're pretty different from each other. Let me go ahead and do another 4.5 here on this color. Oops, almost did 4, didn't I? And then another 4.5 this way. And then we're going to need 2 2.5-inch squares from this scrap piece. And then we're going to need 4 of these to get the first quadrant of our large block. So you're going to have, and this always confuses me, so you just really have to watch yourself. Okay, so that's what 1/4 of your block should look like. You're going to make many more of these. You make 3 more to make 1 large block. My goal is to make 9 large blocks. So let me go ahead and cut out and show you exactly how these are going to go together. The only thing that you're going to have to sew to get started are these. So you'll have to sew these 4 patches together. And then since we cut these at 2.5, which, you know, once you sew them together, you're going to have 4.5. It's going to be exactly what your other square is. So let me go ahead and cut 2, 4, 6 more different colors to get the block that I need. Okay, so this is the basic final block that you'll be making. Now it could be that on the outer edges you would just do a half to frame out your quilt. It just depends on what you like to see when you look at your quilt. I like to see complete circles of those chains, and you know they're going to connect all the way across. So that's why my idea was to do 3 by 3 of these giant blocks. And you can see that with each one of your pieces, for example this one, you're going to have a nice big piece left to make this one again. And since there's 2 pieces, 10 by 10 pieces in a layer cake, you're going to be able to make 4 of these individual blocks out of this color. So it is a 2-color block. So you would construct your 4 patches first. Probably. It's probably what I'll do. And then that will leave you adding your bigger squares to those 4 patches. So in theory you could actually just go over to your sewing machine and make these blocks, these quadrants first, and then arrange them in the color fashions you want to color up for your big block. So I'm going to go ahead and make up a whole bunch more of these so that I'll have a variety to pull from to make my first big block. And I did want to mention too that one strip width of fabric 2.5 of your white or whatever color you use for the chain is enough to make one of these. So how many ever blocks you want to make, that's how many strips you need to cut. So here again, no pattern, no real pattern. We're just kind of, you know, making an the classic Irish chain block and using a layer cake for our coloring. So I'm going to continue on with this, making up some more, cutting out some more, and then we'll get to sewing. Okay, before I start sewing, I just want you to see the others that I have cut out. So now I have 2 complete large blocks, or 8 quadrants. And you can see how I might want to change some of those quadrants around so that you know, they complement each other a little bit better. For example, right here, I probably would switch these 2 out at a minimum so that these 2 dark ones are catty-cornered from each other. And there is the separation of the chain here with the white. So even though I would have those darks here, it would be okay to have a dark here, I think. I'll probably drive myself nuts trying to figure out exactly how I want it laid out. Also, some of the greens, I might swap those around. But yeah, I'm just going to make up a whole bunch of quadrants, or in other words, this area right here of each large block. I'll make all of those up first and then decide on my placement. So now let's get to the sewing. The first step on this first quadrant is to put together the 4 patches, the smaller 4 patches. And once you sew those together where they belong, if you press towards the printed fabric on all of them, they will always nest. So you can see here that this one goes that way and the one underneath goes that way. So when I go to sew those together across here, they will nest. So that's my next step, and then after I get these 4 patches together, all I have to do is join my 4.5 inch squares to those 2 4 patches, and then those 2 4 patches will be joined to this section here, and that'll be the first quadrant of the first large block. Now that I have these together, if you press towards your larger print block, they will always nest. So this one's going to the left and this one's going to the right. So when I sew those together, this time I will be using pins to make sure that I get that center exactly right, and pin on each towards the end of each corner here, and I'll get a nice press there. These ones I opened, they didn't have an intersecting seam here, so I opened those, and I will most likely open this one once I get that sewn. Alright, first quadrant done. I did open that final seam across here. I just need to make 35 more of these, and I'll have my 9 large Irish chain blocks. Okay, here are the state of things. I have 3 big blocks sewn together. I've not sewn the 3 blocks together, but I have 3 individual blocks here just on the wall. I probably may not leave them in this position once I get the other 6 blocks done. So as you can see, as I mentioned before, each block is an 8.5 inch quadrant. There's 4 quadrants, and then that makes a 16.25 inch block once you sew the 4 quadrants together. So I have sewn the quadrants together in these 3 blocks, but I haven't sewn the 3 blocks together. But it does give you an idea of how that chain is going to work, doesn't it? And you end up with that white square and the chain, and then you'll have that same thing again 2 more times. So I need to continue on with this. I have a little more cutting to do to get enough quadrant sections together. I have my white pieces all finished. I just need to cut a few more print pieces, and then I will be able to continue on and get this finished up for Finish It Friday. So come back on Finish It Friday to see my finished quilt top, at least. Like I said before, also in the description box you'll find the measurements of the pieces that you need and the block size. So I hope you try this out. This is super easy. You don't have to make any specialty types of squares or blocks or anything. It goes together really fast. And it's kind of a go-to pattern of mine. And it's thundering and lightning outside right now. So if you heard something strange, that's what it is. So I'm headed back to the house. So I'll see you back here on Finish It Friday to see the result of this quilt top. I hope you try to make one too. Bye.